Then COVID hit. And of course, you can't go near anybody. And I need to be with people. I'm a people person. So I joined another club here, the Remarkable Speakers Toastmasters Club, where I serve as the Vice President of Education. And I also decided to visit 50 clubs in 50 states for fun. You gotta keep busy, right? And I met some wonderful people. And I also visited the clubs here in Arizona. And I fell in love with Saguaro Toastmasters. So I joined club number 16. I believe that's one of the oldest clubs here. I'm amazed. And I also joined the Think Tank Toastmasters because I finished my second path this year and decided to go for, I don't know if I'm ready, but trying to go for an advanced club. My educational background in Toastmasters, I've served as the area governor in South Dakota, the vice president of PR, the vice president, almost every role in there, but secretary. I have not done that job. So back to you, Tammy. That's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Colleen, and thank you for serving on our panel today. Did want to make just one announcement for everyone. For our panelists, Mary Hart will be serving as our timer. Mary's name is out there and has the timer distinction on her name. If you need to stay in tune to the timing, we did say that we would allow 2 to 3 minutes for responses. So just keep that in mind. You may want to pin Mary's name tag there. Fantastic. Thank you again, Colleen. All right. Our next panelist is Al Lorenz, who is Area Director currently for Cholla 5. Al, if you would provide with us just a little bit about your Toastmasters experience and education. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. I have to start out with a very important detail that I didn't know today. I was born in South Dakota also, so Colleen and I share that background. I'm on a rebound for Toastmasters. And I think it's important as we look at our new area directors. I started my Toastmaster career in rural Nebraska, North Platte, Nebraska, in the 80s when I was starting my corporate career. And I spent 4 to 5 years, not with good pathways like we have today, but with the old manuals and books, and I still have them sitting on my shelves. Toastmasters made a huge difference in my life heading into my corporate career at Motorola. And then as I finished my corporate career at Motorola, I happened to meet somebody that many of you know well, and we lost her this year, Miss Hallie Adams. So as Tom Lindsay suggested earlier, Hallie Adams's culture has run amok in this organization in the most positive way you can even think about. So Hallie did the Hey Al program because she worked at Motorola also and finished ahead of me just a couple of years. But as I looked forward, the second time around, I came into Toastmasters because I had gotten rusty. And I reached my corporate career finality, and I started a small business, and I redefined my life with the important goals for me and my family. And those goals were family first, my love of the outdoors. My good friends that know me well know that I'm a national park junkie. I've been to 53 of the top 63 national parks. Alaska's basically the last of my list and the newest park in West Virginia. But besides that, I needed to work in an ethical business environment, which I've continued to do, and Motorola provided me with that. And I wanted to work with nonprofits to help bring leadership skills. And as my wife tells me, you need better listening skills. So I brought that into the game as well. And of course, the public speaking goes with it. So I had an exciting year as an area director. It was a challenging year, but we all know that. So let's not dwell on that. Let's look forward. That's my basic background. I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Al. Thanks for serving on our panel. Next up is Amanda Kuda, from Saguaro 5. Amanda, if you provide us with a little bit of your background.
Thank you, Tammy. Yes, I am Amanda Cuda. The accent is Australian. So I joined Toastmasters in 2017 when I was having a lot of success in my business and people were wanting me to share why. And the first time I got up to speak about it, I held paper up in front of my face and I barely looked at the audience. So I was referred to coming to Toastmasters, and it has dramatically improved my speaking. And then I found out about leadership, and I wanted to learn so much more about how to be a better leader because I was starting to lead teams. I moved to America 2 years ago because my husband is a software engineer here for Amazon. And the first two things I had to do moving here was one, get my driver's license, and then two, find a club that I can drive to. So I joined Valued Voices in Chandler. I currently am on the Effective Coaching Program. I've completed my level 2, halfway through completing my level 3. And I am super blessed to be here. Being an area director has provided me with so much more experience than what I could have ever imagined. I'm so grateful for it. I'm now the incoming Saguaro Division Director, which I'm looking forward to then being able to support the next lot of area directors. And just super blessed to be here because I really enjoyed being at conference last weekend and meeting a lot of people in person. And now just to continue those relationships with people back on Zoom until we can meet back in person again. But it has been such a blessing and I'm grateful for being here. Thanks, Tammy.
Great. Thank you so much, Amanda. Appreciate you serving on the panel. Next up is Marie Futurer from Ocotillo One. Marie.
Yes, hi Tammy, and hello everyone. Another international person here. I'm from France. I grew up in the French Alps in a very small town called Gap. There are about 45,000 inhabitants, so we know each other. Yeah, we all know each other. I remember in 6th grade a story. The teacher was talking about people getting reddish in this when they were ashamed. Where they were. She was talking about emotions, and she turned to me and she said, "Marie." And I was like, "What?" And of course I turned red because she knew that I was shy. So already in 6th grade, the teacher was using me as the shy one who's not going to speak in front of everyone. And that followed me on my life when I went to high school and we had a paper in a presentation. I was like, oh my gosh, and I was starting to freak out even though I knew all my friends and everybody there. So I hid and chose not to speak at all. And then I met my husband and we had our 3 children. We moved 3 years in Japan because I followed him over there. And over there, I discovered photography. And that was a revelation for me. I just loved photography. And in 2008, we moved in Arizona. And that's where I decided to be a professional photographer. The thing is that I wanted to join a networking group and I had to speak to those people every time. And it was terrifying. I have to say that they still talk to me about the most improved one. They say that they couldn't understand a single word that I was saying because I was like, I couldn't speak and I was very high and trying to speak very fast. So I joined Toastmaster and people were saying, slow down. Mm-hmm. You speak too fast with your accent, it's too hard to understand. So slow down. So I'm pacing myself, and it's been 3 years now. And I feel that a lot of more people can understand me, and I feel more comfortable. So that's my journey as a Toastmaster and human. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Marie, for sharing your background and story. I think that you'll find a connection, obviously, with other people as well through photography and through that same fear I think that many of us have experienced. So thank you. And finally, our last panelist is Paul Bartel from Ironwood 4. Paul, if you'd like to introduce and tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Thank you, Tammy. Good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Bartel, and I've been in a Toastmasters since March of 2016, so a little over 5 years. When I joined the club, it was at the urging of my boss, who thought I needed a lot of help in my presentations. As a project manager, I do a lot of presentations to project teams as well as senior leaders, and I was, quite frankly, pretty terrible at it. So when my boss suggested I join Toastmasters, I found a club called Platinum Toastmasters, a very well-established club, a great club. And I thought, okay, I'm going to work on public speaking. Well, 3 months into it was club elections, and I was poked and urged to get on the leadership team, and I joined as the treasurer. Things went well, and 6 months later, I'm the club president. Oh my gosh. Fortunately, the club survived. I survived. Everything went great. But my boss noticed improvement in me, not only in my speaking, but in my leadership. Fast forward to 2018, and the vice president of HR at my company, I work for Cox Communications, approached me and asked me if I would help stand up a club within Cox. And I agreed to do so, and I was named the club sponsor, and that went great. Thanks to my friend Tom Lindsay, who's on the call here today. He was our mentor and helped us a lot. But anyway, as I got deeper into it, I stayed as a leader in Platinum Toastmasters. Cox Communicators did great. All of a sudden, I had all these little things going on that said, hey, you're close to getting a DTM. So I decided to be an area director. And I've survived that. It's been a great experience, and things have gone really well. What all this has added up to is that my boss saw the success I had in leadership in Toastmasters, and he gave me a great promotion. I got promoted to pretty much my dream job. I now manage a team of project managers. And the funny thing is, as a project manager, we like to plan. And my Toastmasters journey and experience was not planned at all. It just happened, and it happened out to be a big help. It helped me professionally. It helped me with speaking. I've been paid to speak now. Can you believe that? I've actually made money doing public speaking. So I'm just really here to say that Toastmasters has been a great organization to be a part of. Being an area director has been a great experience, and I'm very thankful for the opportunities and the support of everyone that's on this call today. So I'm really glad to be here. Tammy, thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. Great, great, great. All right. So now we've met our panelists, and we're going to move into some of the questions we want to try and ask them and extract more from their experience, their knowledge. And please be sure, as you're listening in and thinking of things, that if you have a question, that you type it in the chat directly to Brittany. That would be great. Thank you. All right. My first question is going to be to Amanda Kuda. Amanda, why is it that you first decided to become an area director?
I mean, definitely the reason, well, there was a couple of reasons why I wanted to become an area director. I think the first one was because I am working on getting my DTM. So that is one of the steps to get a DTM, to become a distinguished Toastmaster, is you need to serve as a club officer for a year and also be in district leadership. So area director is the first point of doing that. And it's to dip my toes in as well, because I wasn't quite sure I wanted to move up, and here I am, incoming division director. But I really just wanted to work on my leadership skills. I wanted to learn and be mentored as well. That was a big thing for me. I am always looking for mentors to grow. And when you become an area director, you are going to have so many people that have your back, that are there to support you every step of the way, and also to face new challenges. I'm one of those weird people that I like a good challenge. And being an area director during COVID was probably a big challenge that none of us ever anticipated. Having clubs disband, trying to keep clubs growing, trying to help with clubs grow their membership. So it was really around being able to also give back to Toastmasters for everything that I get with the support. So being able to give back to the clubs, being able to help them grow, and to really be able to focus on my leadership skills as well. So those two parts. I have my part and then helping to give back as well. Thanks, Debbie.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amanda. I want to just add some commentary to what you've just said. When I joined to become an area director, I did it for selfish reasons. I always wanted to go and visit other clubs, but I could just never seem to make the time. And one of the requirements as an area director is that you do other club visits, that you visit the clubs in your area. It forced me to do something I wanted to do. So it was a selfish reason. We were hearing from some of our panelists that the reasons for wanting to go to that next level, to become an area director, is for a selfish reason: to improve leadership skills, to improve speaking skills, to improve your ability to reach out to others. That's okay, because in the process of actually helping yourself, you're helping others. You are building up other leaders, and you're learning how to cross-pollinate information and how to take the things that you've learned and share with other people. I think we'll be able to get some more of that kind of an experience by asking some additional questions. I'm going to go to Colleen next. And Colleen, can you share with the audience here, what are some of the requirements of being an area director? What are your responsibilities?
I had no idea when I started this what I was getting into. I didn't know what the requirements were, but there's so many guides and so many people to help you. First thing I knew, because I was an area governor back in 1994 in South Dakota, I just aged myself, was to visit the clubs twice a year. With COVID and being able to meet on Zoom, I visited my clubs. Some of them said I got where I was Zoom bombing them weekly. That's up to you. But you are required to visit the clubs twice a year and to remind the clubs of things that are coming up, whether it's the TLI trainings for the officers, anything to assist your clubs. There were area council meetings. I think there were 3, and I think I missed one of those, but that's okay too. My coach told me it was all right not to be there for everything. Meeting with your division director when he schedules a meeting once in a while. You attend 4 DEC meetings because you are a voting member and they need a quorum, and that's interesting. You get to host area speech contests. I'd done a club contest before, but that was a new thing for me and challenging, but so rewarding, getting to hear all those great speeches. A couple of the clubs asked me to assist with their club plans. They had not done one in a while. And that was such an honor to be asked to do that. So I took that seriously. And some of the clubs asked me to conduct their officer installation ceremonies. There are guides for each and every one of these things. I emailed the clubs quite regularly, once a month, I'd say, to promote the incentives. There's so many incentives that were put out this year. How could you not? There were the club renewals, the club blogs, club wows, the Schmedley campaign, the club checklist or success list, pay it forward. There were just so many things I couldn't stop myself. And at the beginning, everyone kept saying DCP, DCP. I didn't even know for sure what that meant. But once I began to understand and to assist the officers what they needed to become distinguished, I figured out that part of my job was to motivate these clubs and to help them become or stay distinguished. I guess supporting club growth, helping with club open houses. I learned so much. There's just so many tips and tricks that like Peter said earlier, none of us old area directors will go away. We're there. Reach out to us if you can't get a hold of someone else. And we're happy to give you little tips and tricks, maybe if we found something along the way. Back to you, Tammy.
Thank you, Colleen. Great. Thank you. All right, next I'd like to ask Al. Al, can you tell us why club visits are important and what it is that you actually do in a club visit?
Very good. Thank you, Tammy. I'm happy to do that. The club visits, to me, are one of the great activities that area directors do. Not only is it fun, but it is educational for the area director, as well as hopefully for the member clubs. The key things that I look for are the culture of the club. Because as I've learned in Arizona after a long hiatus from Toastmasters, that the clubs have different cultures. There's a handful of clubs that are like super, super competitive. They like want to win everything and anything along the way. And that's great. They have that culture. But one of my clubs, which was one of my great joys to visit, was this kind of laid back, calm, supportive, fun, care about all their members. But I got to tell you this, and this probably won't go well with all the leadership. I understand that, but they didn't care a lot about those club goals that we set. And you know what? I think that's okay because there's a culture. And as a couple of our leaders said at the beginning of the call, why did you join Toastmasters in the beginning? What was the reason you joined? Well, you heard my personal reason for my corporate career, and it helped. Many of you are starting corporate careers or in the middle of them, or you're in nonprofits, or you're some other important location for your career path. I truly believe that the area director can support that process for those individual members. And I had dialogue with some of those individual members as a coach, a mentor along those lines. You can put whatever label you want on it, but it was one of the key things that I think is so incredible about this, understanding the culture and understanding why people individually join Toastmasters. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you for sharing, Al. So true, so true. The culture of clubs are different. Every club, there may be a basic structure to an agenda that we provide for Toastmasters and roles and functionaries, but every club interprets them differently. I referenced earlier the ability to cross-pollinate. I consider that so very important because you may find when you visit a club that they're struggling with something, and you saw another club that did that really effectively, whatever that specific struggle was, keeping on time or being able to help members develop alternative ways of speaking instead of using their ums and ahs. There are clubs that have different ways of approaching those, and by being able to share that information, not force it, but to share, say, hey, I saw a club that did this. They drop a golf ball into a tin can whenever you say, that's really going to really strike you as a audio cue for how it is that when you actually have one of those crutches. It's that ability to be able to do the cross-pollination that I found to be one of the most valuable things in doing the club visits and how you can help others from the service that you're providing. Thank you, Al, for your commentary. I'd like to go to Paul Bartel next. And Paul, I'd like to ask you, can you talk a little bit about what the time requirements are for being an area director?
Thank you, Tammy. The time requirements can be kind of high, but that a lot of that is just because of myself and the way I am. When COVID started, my leader asked me to always be present, i.e. be on the camera, be ready to go, be available. So I really took that to heart. And one of the challenges that I had when I first became an area director was I had a couple clubs that were struggling. And one club, we worked really hard and just could not make things happen. And we made the decision to have to shut it down. And the remaining members who were still wanted to be in Toastmasters, I had to assist them in finding other clubs. Unfortunately, we were able to move them and they are still doing well. So I started originally with 5 clubs, ended up with 4 clubs. Now, I really try hard to be at as many meetings as possible. Partially because, as many of you are aware, attendance at meetings has been lower for the most part since COVID has started. So we're really focused on being present, being available, setting examples, making sure that the clubs are as successful as possible. So for me, that means, yes, quite a few meetings per week in addition to the clubs in my area, but also my home club that I've been a part of for 5 years. I still want to be a part of them. Then, of course, we have, as was mentioned earlier, the executive council meetings, the training meetings, conferences, and then those good things called speech contests. The speech contest took a lot of time, but we made it through, and actually things worked out very well for us. In fact, in all honesty, I'm glad we did our speech contest virtually. It made things a lot easier. We didn't have to worry about getting food and finding a location and doing 50-50 raffles. So at the end of the day, it was really good. I'm a big believer in plan your work and work your plan. So a lot of the time was just in the planning. Now, I partnered with another area director from Saguaro, a club member of mine, Ingrid, who I've known for years and years. We decided we were going to help each other out in our area contest. And she got all these people for me out of the Saguaro division to help with my contest because you need impartial people. And then I helped her find Ironwood people to help her contest. And it worked out great. And we worked out and created templates. We shared those templates with a lot of people, and it turned out to be a really rewarding experience. And hopefully that model will be used in the future. So yes, it does take a lot of time, but it definitely is worth it. I have no regrets, and I hope that those of you that are coming on board now will just embrace the role and prosper with it. So thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Paul. Fantastic. Thank you. Yes.
Hey. So Tammy, we've actually received a question from one of our participants today.
Great.
From our member, Judy Carlisi, and this is a question for anyone. Is there an area director packet, manual, online kind of piece of information that really explains the role with perhaps the task list and deadlines?
Okay. So what we're speaking to here is the training and preparation that you get for becoming an area director. And I'm going to ask, rather than the panelists, I'm going to ask one of our trio members to help to respond to that, because I know that the kickoff of the area director's year of service, which begins on July 1st and runs through June 30th, there is training that is provided as part of that. So let me ask David Hopper, if you don't mind, can you speak a little bit to the training preparation that is provided to the area directors?
Of course I can. So what we do on our training is every 2 months we have 4 hours of training, in addition to any other training that you would need throughout the year. So if you contact us and say, hey, I really need to learn this, we'll train you on that. We have the TLIs that you'll be a part of, but the official training, we have 4 hours every 2 months.
When we talk about having some formal materials, I think that's what at the heart of the questions. Are there manuals? Are there guides? Toastmasters International does produce an area director and district service leadership guide that you are provided. Along with that, through the meetings that David mentioned, you are also provided other materials that help you guide through the calendar for the year.
Tammy, could I add to that, please?
You certainly can, Al.
Thank you. First of all, the manual that was posted on chat is excellent to start. If you haven't read that manual or looked through it, it's right away the first thing to do. And then I'd like to reinforce what Paul said. One of the great things about running the contest, AJ Riegel and I did the same thing in Choya, and she happens to be a new division director, I believe. So your division directors know how to navigate this because they've been through it. So while the training is critical that David talked about, Paul, the relationship that he talked about, the manual is really the first place to start. If you have not looked at it, it's a great place. You can lay out the outlines. It's well written. And one of the things that I've learned coming back to Toastmasters the second time is the vast improvement through pathways of how they've structured everything, how they've created the background information. I think it's world class, and I think I worked for a world class company at Motorola, and in Toastmasters is that good. It's just incredible what all that brings. So use those resources first, and if you can't navigate those, get with one of your good friends that's been around a while, and they should be able to help you do it, whether it's our District 3 site, whether it's the international site. They're world class. I can't say anything better than that about them. They're world class.
Fantastic. Thank you for the additional comments. And it's very helpful. I do want to say that the materials that Brittany posted in the chat in the beginning were put together with you in mind, with the new up-and-coming area director in mind. What kind of information did we all feel we didn't understand because we had lived just within our own club? So I'd like to give a quick shout out to both Brittany Randall and Hanley Mendoza, who's not able to be here, the Leaders for Tomorrow members, who really concentrated on what kinds of materials could we include in this that would be very helpful to folks who are interested in the area director position that just may not feel comfortable knowing enough about what happens outside their clubs. So thank you for the shout out on the packet. I do believe it's very helpful, and hopefully you all do as well. All right.
Tammy, can I give one little? The trio or district, I think it was, sent us also these 100-day checklists. Those things are amazing. Those were wonderful because you knew timelines, and the division director really helped with me. The thing that I had trouble struggling with at first was finding the online my clubs, how to filter, how to sort, how to find out how they were doing. And those resources, your directors and coaches, or if you have a mentor, as someone said earlier, there's so many people to reach out to help you, because that was my biggest stumbling block was getting into the computer and finding the tools I needed. But Karen and DJ and so many people, Peter, I could even ask Peter questions. That intimidated me at first, but he's actually really human. Thank you.
Yeah. Karen, I think you have something to add.
Yes, thank you so much, Tammy. There was an aspect of Judy's question that wasn't presented, and that was timelines and schedules. As far as deadlines, we as a trio really want you to be successful. So we're very upfront with those timeframes. There's going to be two major parts of your area director role that has a time frame that must be completed by. One are your area director reports. There is a date in October that your first round of reports are done. Then we ask that the second round of reports are done by April 30th. However, those reports open up straight away. So it's not like you have to wait until the last 24 hours to submit them or fill them out. You can go in and start filling them out from the very first visit, editing them, adding to them, and then just hit that submit button later. It is not something that is like, oh my gosh, you have 24 hours or you will self-destruct. It's there to support you from the beginning. And the second thing that has a time frame is the contests, because we have to provide a district winner to regionals by a certain date for them to compete in the international contest. The contest manager and chief judge set out a whole schedule for you from the beginning. There is no way that we will let you fail or miss a deadline, because we give it to you straight away as you need it. But we don't go, okay, Judy, I'm going to give you a list of 727 things I expect you to do over the course of the next 365 days. It will be, Here's your first 100 days. Let's focus on that. Now we're going to focus on this. Bite-sized pieces to make it easy and manageable. I hope that helps.
Truly, it does. Thank you so much for the additional comments. I do believe it helps. And Judy, did we answer your question? Yes? Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Thanks.
Great. All right. I want to move on now. We'll move to Marie. And Marie, the question for you is, what's a typical day for an area director like?
Thank you, Tammy. It's very different. A typical day in an area director life can be very different, depend of the time of the year. At the beginning of the year, we were very involving into visiting clubs and making sure that we did the official installation ceremonies. So mainly at the time, it's a lot of scheduling and meeting people that we don't know, and also meeting the other area directors in your area, meeting the district director, a lot like that. And then when you pass this time, that it's about 2 months, it's now getting into training and be aware of the contest, learning things about the contest, and making sure that all your clubs have all the information so they can be growing toward the being a distinguished club. So that's more. I mean, I have to say that it's whatever you choose to put your work on, but during that time, it's more. For me, it was more at home, sending emails and having the training. Then in February, that's where the big work starts, and that's where you've been asked also to be judges for the other area directors, and this expectation that your contest is coming over, making sure that everything is going smoothly and you have all the information. So for me, it was the time that I was the busiest in February. And then after February, from now to down, it's just like very being at the service of your club, understand what is the problem. You start to know the club members personally, and they start writing you emails, being comfortable and saying, oh, Mary, I have a problem right now. And so it's really different. Okay, in the year. Super interesting.
And what I hear you saying is that being there to support clubs when they need you, it can come at any time, and that the busier times of the year is towards the end, this February through end of June time period. But being there to help support the clubs and make sure that they're have that sounding board. Thank you for that input and perspective. Appreciate that. I'm actually going to take one of the comments that you made and ask Colleen to help us talk through a little bit of the challenges that have happened in this last year. I understand that you, Colleen, your area did not lose any clubs over the course of the last year. And that's actually a very significant accomplishment given all the challenges that we had with membership and with COVID. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did to help support your clubs during this past year?
Thank you. But I did lose a club. I had a corporate club that started meeting, their job was taken offline. And building those relationships with corporate clubs and private clubs and advanced clubs was a little different than the other clubs, because with them not working in the office, this club merged into their sister club. They still have the option of coming back, I believe, for a month, but I'm not sure on that. But the pandemic was positive and negative. Everyone was teleworking, but and people were afraid of Zoom when they first started. I think building that trust with your clubs. When you first start meeting with them, they're skittish. They're a little, all right, here comes another one, another area director. What are we going to do with this one? And by the time you start building that trust and sharing those tips and tricks that you pick up from your other clubs, as you were saying earlier, Tammy, adding some different things, not forcing it on the club, but each of my clubs, I gave the Golden Ear Award this year to their best listening skills. What are your listening is something on Zoom we've lost. And I think Al talked about that earlier. His wife tells him he has to listen to. And it is surprising when you ask the clubs questions after a meeting. How did you hear who said this or that? It challenges them to really start paying attention rather than, I'm a note taker, so I spend a lot of time writing. It's building that relationship, and communication was a struggle. We're communicators, are we not? We're Toastmasters.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes people heard things differently, and I thought, whoa, when I got the message back from someone else, you have to be clear. You got to clarify with that club that they heard. I don't know how many of you ever played that telephone game when you were children, and you told a secret to your friend in the circle, and by the time it got back to you, it was totally different. You just really want to make sure, because one club was concerned that they didn't win in the contest, and their member wasn't even announced. They didn't understand that fourth place winners are not announced.
Mm-hmm.
So education, making sure you communicate and be clear, and constantly keep that line of communication open. Let them know you're there for them anytime, anywhere. I'm not as good as the trio at getting back on time, because I'm usually playing with grandbabies, but I will get back to you. Back to you, Shelley.
Thank you, Colleen. Appreciate that. And you mentioned something that is a particular struggle for many of the area directors, and that is understanding the balance and the differences between how you help support corporate clubs versus community clubs. So, Amanda Cuda, would you mind speaking just a little bit about the types of support that you give to the clubs and how it might be a little bit different depending on what type of club they are?
Thanks, Tabby. I had never been to a corporate club until I became an area director. So I wasn't quite sure how they worked, and especially when a lot of offices, employees started working from home. So that created a challenge for the corporate clubs, because employees are working from home. They weren't then on their lunch break meeting in their conference, in their office conference room. And so it was really challenging to help get the corporate clubs back online. I was successful in getting one corporate club to get back meeting again, but they then disbanded again a couple of months ago, just recently. So there is a very big difference, because a lot of the problems that clubs want help with is membership. And for me, being in a community club is so easy, because there are so many different platforms and areas and avenues that you can do your PR, that you can get new members and utilize from, which makes it very different from a corporate club, because they really only have their internal employees that they're trying to bring in. So that was actually one of my biggest challenges as an area director, was to learn about the culture of a corporate club, how to help them get internal membership. And I kept talking to the trio about it, because it was a new area for me, and they provided excellent advice. And they actually got me excited to bring that information back to the club. So there is a very big difference between the two cultures. And if you haven't been to a corporate club as an area director, you're going to be able to visit and also gain those additional experiences on how to get the excitement within their own organization to help bring them in. I think I deviated from the question a little bit, Tammy.
No. The experience about being able to provide support to both corporate clubs and to community clubs, you've touched upon that beautifully, so that's perfect.
Okay, there.
Thank you. All right. I understand that we have another question in the chat. Brittany?
Yes. So this question is from Mina Chen, and it is to anyone. How do we handle club visits? So just to provide some context, I believe this is very relevant to the current time period that we're in. How do we handle club visits when some clubs are deciding to go in person and some continue to remain virtual? How do we strike a balance between what perhaps our personal preferences are while still honoring the role of the area director?
Oh, wow. That's a deep one. All right. This is where we're going to call upon the experience of our panelists. I'm going to go to Paul Bartel first and ask you to share a little bit about where you see the clubs going and how to support. And specifically that question in there as well about how do you balance the personal things that you'd like to do? I wish it were this way versus how some of the realities might be.
Yeah, thank you. I feel that as far as an area director goes, you're going to have to do the best you can. Some of these areas have clubs that are spread out geographically. And I think that because of that geography issue, hopefully your clubs will stay at the least hybrid, so you can be there virtually. For me in particular, the clubs in my area, about half of them are going to try to go hybrid, where the other half are going to stay virtual. The Cox Club, they turned a negative into a positive with COVID. And instead of having just employees of Cox, Arizona, they opened it up to employees throughout the country. And now they have employees in all 4 time zones. So they're going to stay virtual. So a club like that is going to be easy to lead. Where a club that wants to go in person or hybrid, hopefully they'll at least do hybrid, you can attend virtually. If I had to do this job without virtual meetings, it would be very challenging for me because of the dates and times of when my clubs meet. In fact, I have 4 clubs and all 4 of my clubs meet on Thursdays. So there's no way I could physically be in the same place or in their places on one day, given the fact that I have a day job still to do. But with the virtual setup, I could hit 3 out of my 4 clubs, and I can never do 4 out of 4 clubs because of time overlaps on those Thursdays. So I had to bounce back and forth. But because of the virtual format, I could easily go from a club that would traditionally meet in North Phoenix from 4 to 5 to another club that would meet a little farther away from 5 to 6. I could never do that in person. So that is a blessing there. So I think as you take on area director responsibilities, you're just going to have to work with the clubs and figure out how to do that, and even ask the clubs for what kind of support they need. I found that a couple of my clubs had very strong leadership and they need very little help from me. So I was there more to just be a communicator from the district to them, giving them the information they need, where other clubs were really struggling. And I had to be there because they needed grammarians or they needed a table topics master, something like that. So I had to insert myself and participate a little bit more to help out. But that's being a leader, jumping in and inserting yourself as needed. So you really have to adapt yourself to the needs of the club. So when you take on these clubs, one of the first things you should do is figure out how can you help them? What do they need the most? And if they need you to be there, be present to help because they only are averaging 5 or 6 people in a meeting, you have to do that and step up. So that's the thing. I would say just be flexible and understand their needs and do the best you can for them.
Fantastic. Thank you for all of that input, Paul. I think that's really valuable advice. I wanted to also add my own commentary, and that is that when I was an area governor, when I first started, so this was back in 2012, there was not virtual meetings. Everything was a face-to-face thing. And I live up in Anthem, and I was area governor for a club in Maricopa. So a stretch across the valley. And I thought when I took it on, there was no way that I was going to be able to do this, to be able to make meeting times. But something happens. You figure out how to adjust your calendar and how to be there when the clubs need you there. And that's the kind of magic that's really hard to put into words or to describe how it happens. But there was a quote that was shared on the Toastmasters International site this morning that was actually a quote from the Phoenix Suns coach. And he said, everything that you want is on the other side of hard. So if you continue to focus on those challenges that are between, you and the other side of this year of service that you're thinking about, you're going to become such a better leader, such a better communicator, and have so many more rich experiences for the time that you're going to be committing in. The problems will work themselves out, the challenges, the conflicts. It's a matter of just being able to be committed to what you're hoping to get out of the other side. That's my perspective on it anyway. So I want to ask, we have several other area directors who are not on the panel, and I wanted to give an opportunity to see if there's any of them that would like to share their perspective on the question that was just asked about the virtual experience versus being able to actually be there to support your clubs.
And Tammy, we do have a follow-up question that is in the same vein, if I may add it.
Yeah,
then
sure, go right ahead.
So from Angel to anybody, and I think it's really in the same line of this question, is how do we perform club visits if the club is in person, but we may not feel, or we still feel uncomfortable exposing ourselves to the risk? And I'm imagining the risk of COVID or, how maybe close proximity, et cetera. So just thought I'd add that because I think maybe as people are answering, they can kind of speak to how they might. And then I would highlight too that David Hopper did put a good note in the chat that you can also have assistants that help you with your visits and support the clubs. One thing that I was going to add, it was a number of years ago, much different time pre-COVID as well. But if you weren't able to go, you could also sort of trade with another area director to do visits. That you're responsible for your clubs and submitting those reports on time. But I had a quite dispersed area and there was an area director who reached out to me asking for help. And I went and did their club visit and came back with some notes. And then they offered to do one of mine. So, there's a teaming effort that can happen there as well.
Great. Thank you. So are there any additional folks who would want to add to the conversation that's currently in place about the virtual meetings, the in-person meetings, and the COVID concerns?
Don't forget hybrid meetings.
Hybrid meetings, right. Exactly.
A lot of the clubs are combining those. Our club has been using the hybrid for about 5 months now. A lot of clubs don't have the equipment to do so. But if they can find a location that has a big screen, or I'm sure David could help. He's so techie. But there are tools that can help, like the owl. I don't know if any of you have seen that on TV. It's about the size of a water bottle, and it sits in the middle of the table in a club and can turn its head, and the owl watches the speaker and provides sound. But that thing's like $1,000. It's coming down. It used to be $5,000. I know we're probably going to be thinking more about hybrid meetings so that people who don't feel comfortable, as well as those who do have their shots or whatever and want to get back together, it's an option.
So Tammy, could I add to that also, please?
Please go ahead.
I think there's an interesting development. I sat through a Dell workshop this past week, their worldwide forum, and Michael Dell talked about something that I think is very important, and I think Toastmasters will embrace it. 60% of the workforce is not going back to the office as they defined it before the pandemic. 60%. That was Michael Dell's analysis from Dell. The other thing is they looked at outcome versus location, and they talked about that very importantly, that the important thing is, are we getting our goals met? Are we having a good outcome as opposed to where we're all at? So I believe the Zoom world, the Teams world, whatever formula you're using is here to stay. And I think we should figure out how to embrace it. So to add to what Colleen said, hybrid meetings seem to be making sense if we can figure out the technology component of it and make it useful. The home club I'm at Fountain Hills, we're doing that already. and I believe lots of the clubs are. So let's keep that in mind as, past area directors and future area directors in leadership. There's a lot of efficiency. Paul brought that up, that comes from having a good technology approach to complement our in-person approach.
Excellent. Great.
Something I wanted just to add to, I don't want anyone to be scared away from this experience because of potential things that make you uncomfortable. And what I want to highlight is, even pre-COVID, there's some clubs that use curse words. There's some clubs that you'll encounter that operate differently than maybe makes you feel comfortable or out of your comfort zone. And what I would say is, if you encounter something like that, to work with your leadership team at that time, reach out to your division director to help remove whatever that roadblock or risk is that's there. Everybody, from my personal experience in Toastmasters and leadership, everyone wants you to feel successful. We get out of our appropriate level of comfort zone in speaking and leadership, but we're not asked to do things that we really don't, are not comfortable truly doing. And so I would just highlight that. I had never encountered a roadblock that could not be removed or handled a different way, a creative solution. Work with your division director, and then they might even reach out, up to the trio to get some guidance. Like I said, find a way to make it work, but still allow the opportunity for everyone to get what they need as a club, but also to allow you as an area director to be successful. So just want to highlight that. Don't be scared away.
That's great. That's great, Brittany. That's a great thing to highlight. And it actually kind of bridges into the next question. And I think I'll go to Amanda and then Marie. Amanda, the question I have is, what kind of help do you get as an area director?
So much help. You get so much help from your division director. You get help from all the trio and all the division directors, actually. So all the division directors, the trio, everyone in district leadership, and plus other members who currently aren't serving in district leadership roles. I was not surprised, but really grateful that in my home club, I have a few distinguished Toastmasters. And so they've all gone through the area director role. And I was just, at the end of my club meetings, we would always hang back. That's the culture of my home club, is that we hang back if anybody has any questions or want to socialize. And I would ask them questions. I would say, we've got this coming up or contests coming up. I've got my area reports due. And they were just more than willing and happy to share all their knowledge and experience, because everyone really wants you to succeed. And anytime you have a problem or a challenge, and this is actually something I learned from my husband, that the engineers at Amazon apply the principle of, if you're stuck on something for more than an hour, then call somebody in to help you with that problem. And so I really took that on board with being an area director. If I am struggling with something, and I probably don't have the patience to last an hour, so if I couldn't Google an answer, if I couldn't find it in an email, I would then think to myself, one, how urgent is this that I need to sort this out? Can I wait to speak to the other DTMs after our home meeting? Do I need a quicker answer? So I would usually then email my division director. Sometimes I would CC the other area directors in my division as well, because they might have the same question. And so if you are stuck on a problem, definitely go straight to your leadership. Don't just dwell on it for days or hours. If you can't do it within an hour, go to somebody and get that support. And everyone is there to help you overcome that or succeed or whatever it is. So there is so much support out there.
Great rule of thumb. I love that. That's fantastic. An hour. I think I'm going to apply that to those things I lament about at work as well. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And Marie, what kind of help did you get as an area director?
I received so much help from everyone around me. Toastmaster is a great support team at every single level. You can find someone who knows. Even now, this year was a challenging year because we had all these new things with COVID and Zoom. It was all a brand new territory, but we were sharing so much, trying to get information and being open-minded when things are changing and evolving, but always keeping contact with everyone. I have to say thank you so much, Amanda. She was in the Saguaro area. She had a Saguaro area, and we were meeting monthly with Payal, who is our district director. Just this monthly meeting was huge. Every time I wrote down a few questions and I was going there, and it was like brainstorm. What would you do in that case? Oh, I would do that. So it is just, even if there's no real answer on the Toastmaster website, there's no rule because the problem is brand new. We were thinking together and find a solution. And I have to say, David Hopper was, every time I had a problem, technical, I would send an email to David. It's flabbergasting how the email went back with the solution. I just like you guys, people are just amazing and very helpful. At the beginning, I didn't know who to ask if I had a problem, but you get that really quickly. Like, just go to ask your district director. They would know, and I would say, I don't know the answer, but I know who knows. And that was amazing. So great support team. And exactly like Amanda was saying, in my own club, I have some very, very experienced Toastmaster that I actually asked for help in other clubs. And they were helping me as an area director, and they helped the other clubs that I was area director for. Great supporting, amazing supporting.
Excellent. Thank you for that, sharing those experiences. That's fantastic. You know, and talking about help as well, I want to ask Colleen, did you have an assistant area director and or at least someone who was supporting you that you can consider as someone you mentored into their leadership journey?
Thank you, Tammy. I did not have another person at the beginning. At the beginning, it was me, myself, and I. Those three, some of them didn't carry their own weight. I'm telling you right now. But towards the middle, and there were so many people to help. Like we were saying earlier, DJ Reed was great, and you could always call on David. I do have a few mentors, Nancy Duckett from the Think Tank Club, Lisa Raymond from Remarkable Speakers. I don't know how to say it any better. There isn't a person on this screen that I may not know you today, but I'll bet if I asked you for help, you'd be there. And helping in the contest, The Rock and all these people, he did such a wonderful job on his contest, and Hovey, who's another area director on here. We did the same thing as Paul was talking about. We shared resources. You just didn't know, but there's an abundance of people to help you. Angel may be new, but I know that you can count on her as well. She's just always there. And she's now a member of 7 clubs already. Mm-hmm. But you meet new friends. All these faces, all these people. Remember my first goal when I came to Arizona? I didn't know anybody. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm a people person. So joining Toastmasters, just jumped in with both feet, and the leadership skills I learned as an area director. I thought I had all the leadership skills. I led teams into disasters on 9/11, Katrina, Sandy. Been there, seen it, bought the t-shirt. Mm-hmm. But I learned so many new skills here that I wish I'd have been here earlier, because when you're out in the field and somebody sticks a camera in your face and 6 radio crews move in on you, you don't want to say, I don't know what's going, you know. This has helped me polish in so many ways. I don't know how to say thank you enough to Toastmasters.
That's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Great. All right. I think I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to turn it over to questions and answers from our prospective area directors and make sure that you have voice in responding to some of the information that you've heard today, asking what might be top of mind for you. But what I'd like to go around and just ask our area directors on the panel is, what was the one thing you wish you had known about being an area director at the beginning of your year of service that you now know? I'll start with Al.
Well, this may be a little challenging. I think the most important thing I didn't know was how many meetings we were going to have. And Paul alluded to it early on. And I'm not sure how to address that, because it's probably my one minor negative around all of this. I probably would ask our leadership team going forward, which obviously included me this year, do we really need this meeting? Is corporate Toastmasters requiring it? And I think that's something we need to look at going forward. But other than that, I had no surprises other than trying to figure out some of the things that were talked about. What's the right form? When do we have to have this report done? And Karen alluded to it very well. David Hopper was amazing, as everyone said. And my division director, Alan Claypool, knew how to get this stuff done. And he had a great sense of humor around it. And that would be the last thing I'd add, is make sure we all keep that good sense of humor. But that's been a pretty good thing along the way. So the meetings, that's what I didn't know and still have a little trouble with. So Tammy, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Al. And that goes to actually one of the things that we said earlier, is that somehow you figure out how to make things work. And one of the things that I think Al is bringing up is it's okay to question things as well. Is my attendance at this particular meeting necessary? Are all of these meetings required? And what is another way that we could accomplish the same goals? It's a valid dialogue that you and the leadership team can engage in. Know that you have that power and authority to at least question how it is that we're doing things. Let me ask that same question then to Amanda. What was the one thing you wish you had known about being an area director at the beginning of your year of service that you found out afterwards?
Well, when I talk about, there were a few, but the biggest thing for me was about clubs disbanding. I had such high hopes for being an area director that I was adamant I was going to have a distinguished area. I was going to win some awards. I'm one of those competitive people at times. And having, 4 out of 6 clubs stop meeting in my area was extremely heartbreaking for me. And I was always constantly, sorry, my earbud's falling out, always constantly trying to contact my clubs, probably annoyed them. I didn't mind. I was really trying to get them going. What support can I provide you? Is it technology? Do you need help with Zoom? Is it membership? Can we do some PR campaigns? And I got some advice. Again, I went and spoke to some DTMs and got some advice, and they just said, oh, let it be. You shouldn't really. It was just at a point of time where I couldn't really do anything else. So my biggest lesson for me that I needed to know as an area director, that there are things just out of my control. And they weren't disbanding because it was a lack of my support, and I didn't want to be seen that I wasn't supporting these clubs, because it definitely wasn't that. And so just sometimes you have to let things go, and it is what it is, and you cannot control the club culture. You cannot control what's going to happen to a club. And so coming in as an area director, we hope you're going to give it all your best, but there are just going to be times where you just, I don't know if "c'est la vie" is the right expression, but it's just going to happen, and it's just going to be what it's going to be. And as long as you do your best and let go of it, it's not a failure on your part. And I think I didn't want to be seen as a failure. So that was a big lesson for me.
Thanks for that very honest answer. Yeah, that is one of those tough situations. Again, the year that we've been in has been very difficult. We've lost a lot of clubs this year, and part of that is due to COVID. Part of it is due to membership just in general is something that we have to focus on. And I think that David set the tone at the beginning of this meeting, saying that we believe that we're in front of a year where we will be able to grow. So thank you for those very honest comments. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for their contributions, for their honest answers, and for their ability to come to us and kind of share their experience, reveal themselves and their experiences with us. I would like at this time to ask if there are questions of our prospective area directors that they have top of mind, or something that we did not touch on that you wonder about.
Hi, I'm Allison Reichstein. I'm put forward my name for Ocotillo 3. But
hi, Allison.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone on the panel for coming today and offering your support. I attended the area director forum last year as well, and it was very well run, and I felt confident that in another year I would be ready to throw my hat in the ring for area director. So thank you for doing this again. It was great.
Thanks for sticking with it. Awesome. That's great to hear. Thank you, Allison. We're glad to see you here today. Are there any other comments or questions?
We did just receive a question,
Okay.
which is a good one, from Lisa Cooley. She is from Cochise Toastmasters, and she's currently the area director for Desert Willow 4. And her question is, and I believe it's directed toward anyone, how do you motivate the club officers or other officials? Sorry, my chat window's going nuts. How do you motivate club officers that don't respond to emails or calls, and getting them to keep the club working toward their goals?
Okay, great.
Hopefully I didn't butcher your question, Lisa.
So basically what we're looking for is, how is it that you motivate those leaders who don't seem to be as engaged, at least by your evidence of non-response and maybe response to emails or phone calls, that type of thing. All right, which one of my panelists would like to jump in with a response first?
This
It's
is Paul.
Colleen. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. I would say just be persistent, because this did happen to me on one of my clubs that was one of the struggling clubs, and they are still struggling, but they have a club coach and they are turning things around. And you just have to realize that your club officers, they have lives and day jobs as well. And sometimes they can't get back to you as quickly as you would like for them to get back to you. I sometimes, when I did not receive a response from the club president, I would reach out to the VPE or the VPM to see if we could get a response from them. And sometimes that worked. But regardless of what the situation was, I was always trying to be very supportive and complimentary of them, and thank them for their dedication, especially for a struggling club. You find a small nucleus of people that do want to keep the club going. And you go to their meetings and people are doing 2 or 3 roles in a meeting simply because they want to keep the club viable, keep them going. So you have to be complimentary of them. But I'd say just be patient. If people aren't getting back to you in a timely fashion, email them again or pick up the phone and call them, leave them a voicemail and just say, hey, I really need to touch base with you. Can I get 15 minutes of your time so we can talk? And normally that would work. You'd eventually hear back from them. But that's the thing. You just have to understand they have other things going on in their life. Things can be challenging with their family, with their jobs.
Mhm.
Obviously, COVID caused a lot of stress for people. So that, I'm not generally a very patient person, but I had to learn patience doing this job. And I'm glad I took it on and survived it.
Great response, Paul. Thank you very much for that. And that is really important to remember. The best thing to do is to assume the positive as opposed to assume the negative, right? Assume that they're avoiding your call or that type of thing. No, what you want to do is just go into the situation understanding that everyone's got a lot of pulls and demands on their time. And the thing is, you can probably be that guiding light for them if it is a smaller club and they are potentially, the 3 or 4 members that regularly attend are also the ones who are the officers and are also the ones who are fulfilling all of the roles in the club meetings that they're having. By being able to provide some suggestions like, if you partnered one of your meetings with another club, or you invite in guest speakers, you could alleviate some of the pressures that you have on your own members. And sometimes that's all they need as a spark for, this can happen. We can really get this done and rejuvenate the whole membership drive and those types of things. So remember, you are a positive in not only being able to provide your support, but your ideas for those clubs that may be a little hesitant in responding to you. Thank you for that question, Lisa. I think that's good. Colleen, did you have another response?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I do not have another response. Marie.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear where it was coming from. Sorry, Marie, go ahead.
Yes, hi. To build on that, I would say be flexible. First, try to find out which media they like to use. Some love text, some enter email, some like Facebook Messenger. If you know who that person is comfortable to use it, it's up to you to be flexible and use the media that they like to enter. So that's a big change that you can make and in hoping to receive an answer. Also, if the president doesn't answer, you can try to talk to the VP. But what I notice is when I use the email of everyone, usually I don't have an answer. So it has to be the email sent to that person with his name. Like I send the VP to Tom. Hi, Tom, do you have news about that? Not a Toastmaster leadership or stuff like that. There's a lot less answer if you do a general email. So that's my 2 tips on this problem.
Excellent advice. Yes. Finding out exactly how they like to communicate, to respond. I have people who respond to text, but not to email. I understand that. It's understanding the dynamic of the communication and personalizing it to get the best response. And then also to be very personal with the message. This is directed to Tom to respond as opposed to anyone on the distribution. Fantastic. Great. Thank you. Any additional questions from our audience? I will tell you, one of the things that I got out of my first year as an area director, area governor at that time, was the fact that it lifted my eyes out of the club. When I joined the club, I thought Toastmasters was just Toastmasters. It was my club, and that was the only universe that I was really exposed to. Once you become an area director, you lift your eyes up a little bit higher and you get to see all that goes into planning the contests and the meetings that are required and the council meetings that are organizing our district, which is District 3 in Arizona. And then you get to lift your eyes up a little further and see that we are an international organization with almost 15,000 clubs in 48 countries, I think. And so we are just a little, your individual club is just a little tiny piece of what is a large organization that is all focused on helping to build communication and leadership skills. And you get to be part of that. You get to be part of some of that building block that is making that better for our members. It's pretty exciting. All right. There are a couple of things I'd like to do before we wrap up this meeting. One of them is I'd like to give our thanks to the trio, to Peter Salazar, to David Hopper, and to Karen Hewitt, DTMs all, for their dedication, their support, not only for the district, but for this event specifically. When I asked to get assistance on how we could publish this, the trio came first in line to try and help us do this. I also want to thank the Leaders for Tomorrow Club members who helped to support what needed to be accomplished. Shelley Gabriel, Annalie Mendoza, Brittany Randall, Tom Lindsay, Mary Hart, Edwin Weston, Venkesh Antharaj, Alan Claypool. Appreciate all of their support as well. And then to Christy Hopper, who served as our Zoom master. Without your technical expertise and your support, we would not have been able to make today happen. So thank you very much for that.